Good morning. In this session, we will continue our discussion on Euler-Lagrange formulation. In the last session, we have taken one example on 2 degree of freedom system where both the coordinates are translatory in nature. That is a pretty straightforward problem. In this session, we will take one example in which one coordinate is translatory whereas the second coordinate is rotary in nature. Let's take this example of a cart pendulum system where we are having a cart of mass capital M, then it is moving on the floor and it is attached with a pendulum of mass small m. Let's the pendulum is having length L and it is subtending an angle of theta t from the vertical position, and let's also assume that the cart is attached with a spring and damper where K represents the stiffness of the spring and C represents the damping coefficient. Let's say there is an external force F of t is being applied on the cart and X of t represents the displacement of the cart from the mean position. So let's assume that the string is massless and this pendulum can be treated as a point mass, and the center of gravity of this pendulum will assume the coordinate as xp and yp, where we can represent xp is equal to xt, the cart position, plus L times sine theta t, because we know that from the current configuration this represents L sine theta t and this reference represents L cos theta t, and yp represents L cos theta t, where we can take let's say y in the downward direction. Let's say this is the direction of positive x and this is the direction of positive y. So next let's take the derivative. So we have xp dot is equal to x dot, because cart is also changing, plus L cos theta theta dot, and similarly we have yp dot is equal to minus L sine theta theta dot. Now let's take their squares. So we have xp dot square is equal to x dot square plus L square cos square theta theta dot square plus 2L cos theta x dot theta dot, and yp dot square will give us L square sine square theta theta dot square. So then we'll square and add xp dot square plus yp dot square, which will give us x dot square plus L square theta dot square. Cos square theta plus sine square theta will add up to 1 plus 2L cos theta x dot theta dot, and finally we can multiply the whole term with half m, where m is the mass of the pendulum. xp dot square plus yp dot square, this will give us half mx dot square plus half ml square theta dot square plus ml cos theta x dot theta dot. So after calculating this, we are now in a position to calculate the kinetic energy of the cart pendulum system. So we know that the total kinetic energy of the system should be equal to kinetic energy of the cart plus kinetic energy of the pendulum. And we know kinetic energy of the cart, it has two components: kinetic energy of the cart translational plus kinetic energy of the cart rotational. As cart is moving on a horizontal surface, so the rotational kinetic energy is 0, and we can say the kinetic energy of the cart translational component is equal to half capital M x dot square, where capital M represents the mass of the cart. Similarly, we have kinetic energy of the pendulum. It is again having two components: kinetic energy of the pendulum translational plus kinetic energy of the pendulum rotational. Kinetic energy of the pendulum translational we have already calculated in the last slide, so we can write this again: half mx dot square plus half ml square theta dot square plus ml cos theta x dot theta dot. This is the translational part, plus half I theta dot square, where I represents the moment of inertia of the pendulum, which is equal to 0 because we have assumed the pendulum to be of point mass and there is a string of having 0 moment of inertia. So instead of a simple pendulum, if there is a compound pendulum, let's say something like this, then this compound pendulum is having inertia I, so then we can consider this component half I theta dot square, which is the rotational component of the kinetic energy, which is equal to basically half I omega square. So now we can calculate the total kinetic energy of the system. We'll add up both the terms. So we have half m x dot square plus half m x dot square plus half ml square theta dot square plus ml cos theta x dot theta dot, and we can combine the terms. So half capital M plus m x dot square plus half ml square theta dot square plus ml cos theta x dot theta dot. For brevity, I am withdrawing all the functional dependence with respect to time, but it is expected that all theta x dot theta dot all depends upon time. So this is the total kinetic energy of the cart pendulum system. Next, we'll try to calculate the potential energy of the system. Potential energy, which is written as P, we have the total potential energy as potential energy of the cart plus potential energy of the pendulum. So let's try to calculate both the terms one by one. So first of all, we have the potential energy of the cart. Again, the potential energy of the cart has two components: the potential energy due to gravity, that is because of the position of the cart in the gravitational field, plus potential energy of the cart due to elastic deformation, which is called as the elastic potential energy. As the cart is moving on to the ground, so the gravitational potential energy is 0, and the elastic potential energy is equal to half kx square because of the deformation in the spring which is attached to the cart. Similarly, we have the potential energy due to the pendulum. Again, we have the two components: potential energy of the pendulum gravitational plus potential energy of the pendulum elastic. So as there is no spring being attached to the pendulum, so the elastic potential energy is 0, and the gravitational potential energy we can calculate. So let's try to see how to calculate. So initially we have to assume that the pendulum is at the bottommost position and it has risen by this amount because of this angle theta t. So we have to calculate the change in potential energy. So we have this, we know mg. So the original length is L, and because of this rise of the pendulum, this component is L cos theta. So the change in potential energy is mgl minus mgl cos theta, and because of the rise of the pendulum, so we use the plus sign. So mgl, that is our original position, minus mgl cos theta, that is the final position, and we have used this plus sign because of the rise of the pendulum, plus 0. So we'll take mgl common, so that is 1 minus cos theta. So this is the potential energy of the pendulum. So let's take the other example where, let's say, when the pendulum is an inverted pendulum. So in that case, let's say we have the pendulum at the uppermost position. So this is again mg, and the length, original at length, is L, and let's say the pendulum after some time will fall to this value, and that, let's say, this angle is theta, and this new location is L cos theta. So as the pendulum has fallen down, so the change in potential energy in this case is negative because of the fall of the pendulum. So in this case, the potential energy P is equal to the initial position, which is equal to mgl minus mgl cos theta, and because of the fall in pendulum, we'll have minus sign over here. So the net potential energy in this case is minus mgl into 1 minus cos theta. So that's the difference of when the pendulum rises and when the pendulum falls. So the total potential energy of the system P is equal to the potential energy of the cart plus the potential energy of the pendulum, which is equal to half kx square plus mgl into 1 minus cos of theta. So after calculating the kinetic energy and potential energy of the whole system, we are now in a position to calculate the Lagrangian, which can be written as the total kinetic energy of the system minus total potential energy, and we have kinetic energy is equal to half m plus m x dot square plus half ml square theta dot square plus ml cos theta x dot theta dot minus half kx square minus mgl into 1 minus cos theta. So this is the Lagrangian, and we also have the Rayleigh's dissipation function because there is one damper. So the Rayleigh's dissipation function represents the total amount of energy dissipated by the system, which is equal to half cx dot square. So now we are in a position to apply the Lagrange equations, which are given as d by dt of del L by del qi dot minus del L by del qi plus del R by del qi dot is equal to capital Qi for all I goes from 1 up to n, where n is the number of degrees of freedom of the system. So let's take I equal to 1. So we have over here q, that is the vector of generalized coordinates, is equal to, let's say, q1 q2, and q1 represents the displacement of the cart and q2 represents the displacement of the pendulum theta t. So for I equal to 1, we have del L by del q1 dot, which can be written as del L by del x dot. We have m plus m x dot from the first term. Second term, there is no contribution from x dot, 0. Third term, we have the contribution, so we have ml cos theta theta dot, no contribution from the fourth term, no contribution from the fifth term. So that is the del L by del x dot. So now we can take the total derivative. So d by dt of del L by del x dot, so that will give us m plus m x double dot plus, here we have to apply the uv formula because both theta as well as theta dot changes with respect to time. So we have the first function ml cos theta into theta double dot, and then we have ml sin theta into theta dot square. Next we have del L by del Q1, which should be equal to del L by del X. So first term, no contribution from X, 0, plus second term is also 0, third term is also 0, the fourth term is minus kx, and the fifth term is again 0. So that is equal to minus kx, and del R by del Q1 dot, which should be equal to del R by del X dot, which can be written as Cx dot, and finally we have Q1 is equal to F of t, that is the external force being applied on the cart. So we have calculated all the terms. Now we can plug in all these values in this Lagrange equation, that is equation number 1. So we have m plus m x double dot plus ml cos theta theta double dot minus ml sin theta theta dot square plus kx plus cx dot is equal to f of t. So that is the equation of motion of the first body. Let's go to the second body, where we have to calculate for I equal to 2. So let's rewrite the Lagrangian again, and the R, that is the Rayleigh's dissipation function, is equal to half Cx dot square. So this is the L and R. So for I equal to 2, we have Q2 is equal to theta t. Let's calculate the first term, which is equal to del L by del Q2 dot, which is equal to del L by del theta dot. So we can see from the Lagrange, the first term depends only on x dot, so it's 0, plus second term we have ml square theta dot, plus third term we have ml cos theta x dot, and 0 for the fourth term, 0 for the fifth term. Then we have the total derivative, which is equal to d by dt of del L by del theta dot ml square theta double dot, plus again we have to use the uv formula, so we have ml cos theta x double dot, that is the first term, plus ml x dot minus sin theta theta dot. Then the next we have del L by del Q2, which is equal to del L by del theta. So first term we have 0, second term we have 0, third term depends upon theta, so that makes minus ml sin theta x dot theta dot. Fourth term is 0, and the fifth term we have minus mgl 0 minus, that becomes plus sin theta. Next we have del R by del theta dot, which is equal to 0, and Q2, that is the amount of external force being applied on the pendulum, is also 0. So now we have calculated each one of the terms, and we can plug in these values into the Lagrange equations, so which will give us ml square theta double dot plus ml cos theta x double dot minus ml sin theta x dot theta dot. So that is the first term. Then we have del L by del theta in negative, so that becomes plus ml sin theta x dot theta dot, and then plus mgl sin theta equal to 0. You can see this term will cancel with this term, so the final equation we have is ml square theta double dot plus ml cos theta x double dot plus mgl sin theta is equal to 0. So this is the equation of motion of the pendulum. Next, let's write the dynamic model in matrix form. In order to write the dynamics in matrix form, so we have to assume that the theta will remain small, so sin theta will be represented by theta. So again, let's try to right, we know that our vector of generalized coordinates contains card position and the pendulum position, card velocity, pendulum velocity, and we have card position, pendulum position, which is equal to, let's say, q1 q2, the external force being applied on both the bodies. So let's plug in the first equation of motion as the first row of the matrix. So if we can see, there is a contribution from x double dot, which is equal to m plus m, and then we have theta double dot, so we have ml cos theta. Then for x dot in the next matrix we have c, and for theta dot we have minus ml sine theta theta dot. And for the positions we have, from x side we have k, and for theta side we have no contribution, so 0, and q1 is equal to f of t, that is the external force being applied onto the card. So now let's go to the second equation, which will be written as the second row of the matrices. So first we have the contribution from x double dot, which is equal to ml cos theta. Then theta double dot we have ml square. So then there is no contribution from the velocity side, so both terms are 0. And then we have, for x side it is 0, for the theta side we have mgl, as we have converted sine theta as theta, considering theta to be a small entity. So this is the equation of motion written in the matrix form. So here we know the first matrix is called as the mass matrix or inertia matrix. The second matrix is called as the damping matrix, and the third matrix is called as the stiffness matrix. So as discussed in the previous session on Newton-Raphson formulation, we can clearly see over here that the mass matrix is symmetric, it is positive definite, and it is not necessarily diagonal. Whereas the damping matrix over here, we can clearly see that in the last example it turns out to be symmetric, but in this case it is not symmetric. Whereas the stiffness matrix is always symmetric. So these are the properties of these matrices. Next comes their functional dependencies. So here we can see the mass matrix always depend upon the position. Here you can see the second term which depends upon theta. We can write it as mq into q double dot plus the C matrix. Here you can see it depends upon both theta as well as theta dot, and in more complicated systems it may also depend upon x and x dot. So the functional dependence of C is its q and q dot, and this k depends upon theta and x position variables. So we have k q into q, so that should be equal to f of t. So this is the dynamic model representation in the most general form. So next we are now try to understand the significance of each one of the term involved. So there are 7 to 8 forces involved. Let's try to understand their significance. So we'll use a different pen. Let's take a green pen. So first of all, we can say the term which is written with respect to k, that is, it's called as the stiffness. The term which is with respect to C is damping force. The term this Ft, this is external force, and the term which involves this G, it is called as the gravitational force. So these four forces are pretty simple. Wherever we have the double dot of the position variable, so like over here 1 2 3 4, whenever we have a double dot, all these terms are called as inertial terms. So this will comprise the inertia matrix. So these are called as inertia forces. So what is left? This term is left. So let's try to understand the significance of this term. So whenever there is a square of a velocity, so this term is called as the centrifugal force. So let's try to understand its meaning and direction. So let's say we are having a ball which is tied to a string, and we attach one end of the string with our finger, one end with this ball. So, and we'll try to rotate this ball, and let's say this mass is m and the length of this is L, and we know, let's say after some time the ball goes to this position, and we have the rotational velocity of this is, let's say, omega, which is equal to, let's say, theta dot, and let's say this angle is theta t. So we know that this represents the tangential force, which is equal to m into omega cross r, and its direction is tangent because we know that the omega is out of the plane, and this r, which is equal to L, is in this direction. So if we curl our fingers from omega to r or omega to L, the thumb will point in the direction of this force, so which is called as the tangential force. So this tangential force is m omega cross r, and now if we take this centripetal force, which is written as mr omega square, so which is in terms are written as m omega cross r. So omega cross r we have already taken, which is the force in the upward direction. So we take one more cross product, so omega with omega cross r, so that will be, because omega is outside the plane of the paper and omega cross r is upwards, so if we curl our finger from omega to ft, so we'll see the thumb will point in the direction of inwards, towards the left. So we have, so that's why the sign is always towards the inside. So this is called as the centrifugal force, which is exactly what we have over here as minus ml theta dot square. So one of the force is still missing. What is that force? If we recall carefully, so one of the force has been cancelled out. That is, typically that happens in this particular problem, but in general that force is there. So let's try to see what force has been cancelled. So this is the force that has been cancelled, which contains the superposition of two velocities. So wherever there is a x dot theta dot, that is called as basically Coriolis component of the force. So whenever there is x dot theta dot, which means the superposition of both the velocities, so that force will also be there, which in this example turns out to be 0 because it cancels out. So let's try to understand its significance. So let's say we have this a link, and this link is rotating with respect to the angular velocity, let's say theta dot t, and this link is having a slot, and let's say there is one ball which moves linearly in this with velocity x dot. So let's say if there is a one observer being there on this ball, so the force being experienced by this observer will have both the components x dot as well as theta dot. So the Coriolis component of the force will have both the components x dot and theta dot, and it will appear when there is a superposition of two velocities. So from these equations we can clearly see, from the entry itself we can identify what are the forces being present and which of the forces are missing in this equation. So that completes our discussion on the dynamic model. Thank you.